Okay, I have to tell you something.
Tell me.
I don't feel like this vision was only supposed to be held for me to not share with people. She pulled me out of the industry. She was like, "No, you don't get to act anymore." And whenever I'm watching a movie and I see an actor right with their left hand, I was like, "Oh, that makes sense.
Yep.
That just makes
Checks
sense."
out. That checks out. Hey there, and welcome back to another episode in the February drop of the Napkin Notes podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Evans. Thank you guys so much for being here with me today. I am so excited to introduce you to today's guest, the one, the only, Alexa Penavega. She is an actress and a singer, and there honestly is a plethora of places that you guys might know her from. Hallmark, Great American Family. Let's go back to the 2000s a little bit. Spy Kids. Oh my gosh, Sleepover. Did you guys watch Sleepover growing up? I loved that movie. I tell Alexa in this episode how much I loved that movie as well. She gives a little insight of like maybe some potential future collabs for the Sleepover. I don't know if you call it a franchise, but there's future ideas for a remake of that movie. So in this conversation, of course, I'm talking to her about acting and her career, and of course, all of those things that we want to hear a little behind the scenes about. But truly, it is just a girlfriend conversation. We talk so much about her faith and why that means so much to her. She has gone through a lot of hardships in her life, and I ask her how she remains so tenderhearted even after going through some really hard things. I do want to mention in 2024, I believe it was, she did have a stillbirth baby girl. And while we touch on that in this conversation, she gave such an eloquent testimony to, I think it was with Stream Studios a couple weeks before this comes out. And so if you guys do want to hear more about that after you listen to this episode, there is a beautiful story online that she gives about her testimony of the grief and also the peace that came after that. So tune into that after you listen to this episode. But in this conversation, again, we talk about her faith. We talk about her marriage. We talk about how she got grounded from Hollywood by her mom at age, I think 9, she said. And it's truly one of those conversations that I will continue to think about. There's 2 parts in the conversation. I don't want to spoil it, but there's 2 parts to me that just really stand out. One is when she gave me advice on how to be more present throughout the day. And the second one was kind of a prophetic vision that she had experienced, that she was thinking it wasn't just for her, but could be for others as well. I know that I received a lot from that, so maybe you will as well. But you guys, I hope you are so encouraged from this conversation as much as I was. It's fun, it's lighthearted, it's also insightful. It's just a girl's girl conversation, you know? But you guys, with no further ado, I won't make you wait any longer. Here is my conversation with Alexa Penavega. You guys just moved to Nashville, and I was in Nashville for 6 years. I'm in Austin now, but how has the transition been to are you in Franklin or Nashville?
So we're south of Franklin, and we personally love it. Nashville, I feel like if you tell people you moved to Tennessee, that's so broad, and it's just easier to say Nashville because,
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
honest
yeah.
with you, I didn't know what Franklin was before I
I'm
moved
with you.
here.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
it was just such a God move for us. We never expected to move. We were living on a boat, and before that, we were living in Hawaii. So it was one thing after another, and we were both praying, and separately, my husband and I both kind of received that it was time to move. And
Wow.
we drove up to Tennessee that night. We did not wait. And I have loved it. It has been so life-giving here. My kids are thriving. I'm thriving, other than, I did just mention that we got off a really long flight, and so we're so exhausted. So I'm so sorry if I get like a little groggy on you.
No, we love an unfiltered version of a
Oh, you will get very
conversation.
unfiltered.
Yes, you are showing up perfectly then today. Um, I'm curious to know, because it sounds like you guys were both hearing from the Lord separately,
Yeah.
Tennessee, and then you did not delay in
No,
your obedience. Are you usually that fast to obey when you hear the Lord tell you to do something?
we're all in kind of people.
Wow,
um,
that's
and
amazing.
I wish I could say that was for always and ever.
Mhm.
Um, I think earlier on, and it really depends on what it is.
Yeah.
As much as we are all in people, I think there are certain things that are a little bit harder for us. Um, like for instance, it's way easier for me to be all in when the Lord is like telling me to move, or when God is calling me to like defend somebody, or to just do something maybe not for myself or for the greater good of our family, right? But when it comes to doing something for myself, just me and the Lord is asking me to move, and I know it's either gonna ruffle feathers or butt heads, that is where I am working against my flesh and my people-pleasing qualities, and it is hard for me to move. Um, if it's gonna benefit me, I have a hard time listening to God, which is the weirdest thing. It's so strange because it's coming from Him, and yet there is a little pause before I enter into, like, action. So I'm still
That's
working on that.
such good self-awareness though, because I feel like the first step of fixing something or overcoming something is just
I'm
admitting
aware of
it.
it.
And the yes, we're past step 1. No, I think that's really interesting. I was thinking about this last night. Like I'm not a person that necessarily avoids confrontation. Like if I see somebody having like an injustice done against them, I'll be the first one to hop up and do
Same,
something.
same,
For myself,
different.
there's yeah,
I don't know
it
why
does
it's
feel kind of
different.
different.
It's just
Yeah.
different. Yeah, and also, I just have always felt like, okay, God, the truth is always revealed. So I don't need to sit here and like let people know, like defend myself. I don't have to sit here and, let people know that I didn't do anything wrong or whatever. It's one of the things where I'm like, well, look, you don't believe me, that's fine, but the truth will eventually be revealed. So I wonder if that's kind of why I don't come to my own defense when if there's any sort of issue, because I'm just like, God's gonna reveal it. He's got it.
That's so comforting. I had, I don't know if you follow Clearly Stated on Instagram.
Oh, I don't
She's a
know
great
who
follow if you don't. She has this gift with words that it just feels like Holy Spirit deposits it into her and then she
that is.
just writes it. It's amazing. But when I had her on, she asked me a question and she said, "How comfortable are you being misunderstood?"
Oh. So good. Okay, this is great though, because it depends on who it is. If
Yeah.
it's like random people that I don't know, fine, misunderstand me. I don't care. Like
Yeah.
eventually you'll know who the real me is. But it's when it's like my husband or somebody close to me, that's when I'm like, wait a minute. You know me. Like, why would you think this, or this? So
Yes.
I feel like it's easy to become defensive versus, I always tell, Carlos and I go back and forth, and I don't want to be a reactor. He doesn't want to be a reactor. We want to be responder, right?
Yeah, that's good.
And I think it's hard because like when something comes up that we as humans don't like, our flesh wants to react immediately, but we are supposed to be responders with slow to speak, quick to listen. And that is way easier said than done. Um, but I'm more on the quiet side. My husband is like, he's passionate. So, like, he's a little bit more fire. So, if something's happening, it takes everything in him to just be like, self control, self control.
It's kind of a good balance, and I guess for you guys, because it
It
does
is.
sound like you guys are both all in people. So you've got that
We
side of their
are.
personalities super similar. It's just sometimes the execution and the delivery is a little
100%. And
different.
I think a lot of that has just been, man, we've grown so much in our faith. And, if you were to ask Carlos how he would react to things before he got saved versus now that he's lived a life with the Lord for like, the last, what is it, 12 years, 13 years now, um, they're radically different. Everything bothered him in the past, everything. And now it's just so different. I mean, the stuff that he's had to go through behind the scenes with work and stuff that's happening, he is just such a rooted man, and I don't know how you go through the things that he goes through without that kind of, like, those kind of roots in faith. He is just
Wow.
he's such an impressive guy to watch, and, he's my husband, so, of course, I'm gonna say nice things, but I'm not just saying it just because of flattery, I'm saying it because he really is just all in with God, and it's so fun being able to watch his transformation of when we met to who he is now because he has just blossomed.
I don't think I knew that he came to Christ as an adult.
Yeah, I mean, if you count us as adults, I mean, we were in our early 20s, so yeah, we were
Okay.
young
Yeah.
adults, right?
Yeah.
Um,
But it wasn't raised in that kind of
yeah,
household.
so like he had loose faith growing up. I know that like I think they started off somewhat Catholic, sometimes attending I think mass, and then they became Christian, but I think it was because of, like, the school that they were going to, and then but they would, like, dive into all these other kind of practices that were different than Christianity, but just practices in their house that, made it really confusing as a kid. And
That feels
then
confusing,
and
yeah.
then because there wasn't like a consistent conversation at home, it was just more like show up, check the box at church or math or whatever it is that we're attending this week. Um, there wasn't ever a relationship with God. Um, and Carlos openly talked about, when he hit his rock bottom, he didn't know who to call except for this one realtor guy who was a friend of his, who happened to be my best friend. Um, he calls him and was like, "Why are you happy all the time?" 'Cause he was the only person in his life that he knew was consistently happy. He's like, "I want that. Why are you always happy?" And really, it was like the peace of the Lord. So it was that phone call
I
that
actually didn't know that
oh,
story.
really? It's great. It's so
No.
great.
Yeah, I'll have to go listen on some other stuff of his. Did you grow up in a Christian household?
I did, and again, it was also loose. I would say that, when I was in my very early years, like 4, 4 years old, my mom really instilled, like, deep root in the Lord, like, just such a love for Jesus, such an understanding of Jesus. I think it was when she was going through her Bible study at that time, so she was just pouring into us, everything that she was learning, and then she kind of not that she walked away, but she stopped attending church, she stopped attending Bible study, and I think that happened after our move, and she never really got back into it, and that again was still only early on. I think I was only, like, 6 years old when we officially fully moved, and we would attend church sometimes when it was convenient, but it soon just became never. We just never went to church. But I always craved this relationship with God. Like I knew there was more. She instilled it in me, and it was so rooted in me that I felt it in my core. So I would like pray to God. The only Bible that I had was the King James version, so it was really hard for me to
It's hard to
understand. As like
understand.
as a 9-year old, like what do these words mean? But
As a
still
35-year-old, it's still
yeah,
difficult for me to understand.
same. But, like, still having the desire to want to know. So I used to remember reading it and then asking God, like, "Surely there's more. Like, I know there's more than just this thing that I'm doing and, like, going to church." But nobody could explain it to me because I didn't have anybody in my community or my family that knew there was more. So it wasn't until I started driving myself to church, and
Wow.
I started going to 16, but, like, I really started to understand it more, like, 17 and 18, and then, I kind of dropped off a little bit, got married, and then got a divorce, and then was like, "God, I need you," and I died, like, head first or dove head first into my relationship with the Lord, and my first Bible study that I ever
Wow.
attended was as an adult, and that's where I met my husband, Carlos.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's crazy how the different life tentacles just kind of start to pivot what's gonna be your trajectory for
so
the
much.
next season. I was talking about this in my last interview, and it's something that I don't know, I bring up a lot, but I feel like the Lord gives us like, we always have worth and purpose just
Yeah,
because we are made in the image of God, so we have that. I think we have specific callings on our life that we
for sure.
fulfill while we're here on this side of
Yeah.
heaven, but I think that that calling is broken up into different, almost like life assignments.
Mm.
And so
Seasonal.
that's yes, very seasonal, and that's where it's interesting how one can kinda connect and they can build, like, when I moved out of Nashville to Austin, people would always ask me why, and I was like, "I just had this feeling that my assignment had been fulfilled
Come
while
on.
I was in Nashville, and
Yeah.
it was just time to go." And it's hard when it's not necessarily, like, a tangible feeling,
Yeah.
um, but I do like thinking about things in assignments because it's not this overarching thing that we have to figure out, or if like one season is a complete quote
I love that.
failure in our mind, the Lord can redeem anything.
Come on. Yeah, I love that so much, and I think it is hard. I think it would be really, really hard for us to think of, like, an overall thing because how do you even encompass, like,
Yes.
what I mean, for me, I go, "Okay, my end goal is the kingdom." So, I'm in a race,
Yes.
and you know what? I don't know what the next mile is gonna bring. I just know that I'm racing to the kingdom, and that's it, and I feel like, I always tell people that when they're like, "What's the key to a healthy marriage?" I'm like, "You keep running that race and make sure that your husband is next to you while you're running." Because we
Yes.
have the same goal in mind. Um, but anyway, that was my tangent, I'm sorry. Um,
No, I loved it. No, thank you
but
for sharing all of
but
that.
no, I love what you were saying, like, it is but it is seasonal, I feel like, God has called us to something different in each season. And the more and more I grow and I learn, I think that God has given us all gifts and talents that we're supposed to utilize, whether we realize it at the time that at the right time or not. Like, I feel like there's so many things that I wish that I had realized when I was younger, but the Lord has been so gracious to still allow me to be in the position that I'm in and to now learn those. And like the door's not shut yet, but I just wonder how many times doors have closed because I didn't act on something that God had, put in front of me. And, I think of the Israelites in the wilderness, how they wandered for 40 years and then never entered the promised land that was promised to them, that they were supposed to enter. And I'm like, that was a 2 to 3 month journey. Like, they would have been in
At
there had
40
they been
years.
obedient, but instead it was 40 years. They didn't get it. And I just wonder how often, because of our lack of responding to God's calls, we just miss it and the opportunity closes on itself because God's like, I gave it to you, like I had it right in front of you, but
Yes.
you didn't want it, essentially.
Yeah, I feel like he's always searching earth for hearts open to him.
For sure.
And he will keep searching until he finds someone to kind of fulfill the purpose that needs to be fulfilled. And um, yeah, I was actually just saying in the last interview as well, I feel very in alignment with what I'm doing in the season of life of running my business, having my podcast. But I have found that my awareness and noticing of these Holy Spirit nudges has decreased because I'm so busy. Like I'm filling my days so
And
much.
this is
And
when you gotta be even like deeper. Okay, I have to tell you something. And this
tell
is,
me,
and I don't think it was just for me. Hold on, let me rephrase it. God gave me a very clear vision for our family, which was
okay,
really cool. But I don't feel like this vision was only supposed to be held for me to not share with people. So I
okay,
feel like this is important.
okay,
Um,
thanks.
he gave me this vision this year that he's like, you're on a platform and it almost looks like a cartoon platform on springs. And it was like being held down by ropes. But like the second those ropes are cut, that platform's gonna like shoot up in the air and go skyrocketing. Like you guys are on a platform and it is going to take off whether you're ready or not. And you need to get deeply rooted with me because it's going. And it was such a wild thing to experience.
Yeah,
But we're watching all these doors fly open, doors that have been so closed on us for years are just now happening for our family that we're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And it goes to the busier that we are, normally we'd be like, oh, you know what? I didn't have time to get in my prayer closet or whatever. But because that vision was so clear of you're going to take off, and if you're not rooted, you're gonna fall off. Like, it's going to happen, but you're going to fall off if you
that's
aren't rooted
so
into this.
good.
And it just I look at people in our industry, I look at people, um, who have had success, but have just totally lost themselves because of lack of root, and I'm like, "All right, Lord, like, I don't want this for me. I want to be living for you truly. I don't want the things that you don't want from me. Even though it's hard sometimes, there are things that I'm like, darn, that would just be so cool.
Yes,
um,
that would be cool, or that would be a little bit easier. It's right here.
exactly.
Yeah,
But I want what he wants for me. But more than anything, I want to be rooted in him because I can't make good decisions without him. I can't be a good mom without him. I can't be at peace without him. There's just so much that like I need him so desperately for. So the only thing I would say to you is set a timer. I tell this to everybody. So I'm sorry if I'm like myself. Set a timer on your phone, just a reminder, and it should go off every hour. And every hour, it just should just say pray. And it's just that reminder of like no matter how busy you are, just take a moment and just remember God is literally right next to you and with you. Start praying. It doesn't matter. Like you could be in the bathroom, you could be at work. It doesn't matter. It's just that reminder of
Yes.
like, oh yeah, this is all for you, God.
Alexa, thank you so much. And thank you for being so in attunement to that, to still see that for yourself with as much as you have going on and bold enough to speak that into me today and the people that are listening. So thank you
Girl,
so much
I
for
need
that
it. I
faithfulness.
need to hear it for myself. So the more I say it, the more I can validate it.
Together we can do it.
Yes, come on.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know that you have had so much success in your career and I think we're about the same age. but for me, like, I watched Spy Kids when it came out in the movie theater. Like, this was a thing, and as much as I loved Spy Kids, Sleepover was, like, the
Oh my
soundtrack of my
gosh.
upbringing.
I have to be honest, I have tried to watch it again because we really wanna reboot it. We think it'd be so fun to reboot it, but I, like,
Oh my
tried
gosh,
watching
I will be
it
the
again,
first one in line. This is so embarrassing,
but
but it is true.
it look, I think it had good bones. It was not a good movie, but I would love to have an opportunity to do it again and really do it right. Um,
The
but
only thing I would request is to make sure that there is the, skateboard scene
oh, yes,
or
for
some
sure, for
replica
sure.
of
We'll do
that.
something of the sorts, but we're definitely talking behind the scenes to see what we can make happen, and,
Oh my
it looks
gosh.
very promising, so we'll see.
Oh, good, okay, this is making me so happy. Um, but some of my producers behind scene, I was telling them that you were gonna be the second guest of today, and they were saying that the director of Spy Kids
Yeah,
is Austin-based, and
yeah.
they're, like,
So
friends
I've
with.
spent a ton of time in Austin. I love it's
Okay,
like it feels like a second home for me.
okay. Oh, I
Uh,
didn't realize
yeah,
that.
we shot 4 Spy Kids there, and we also
Wow.
filmed my sister was in the first Sin City, and then I did Machete in Sin City after. So I've done so many projects there because of Robert, that it's home. It feels
Oh
like
my
home.
gosh, that's awesome. Yeah, they had
But it's
nothing but amazing
so
things
much
to say and how much, like, he just did for the, movie industry and things,
oh,
so it was just,
yeah.
like, a
Oh,
very
yeah.
cool connection.
And the crew is, I mean, we used the same crew for years over and over. So when I went back, we weren't in the last Spy Kids, but um, uh, my husband was on tour and they happened to be filming the latest Spy Kids while he was on tour, and we were coming through Austin, and they invited our family to come visit the set. So we were there, and it was the coolest thing. Literally seeing the
Wow.
crew members that I grew up with on this set, and then walking in with my children, and we were all bawling because
Oh,
it
I'm
was the most
sure the
surreal
full circle moment.
oh, yeah, it was just the most surreal experience because these are people that saw me when I was 11 years old, who looked after me, who I just adored and loved, and now I'm here introducing them to my, like, at that point, like, my 5 and 6-year-old. Like, it was just so cool.
I love when people are that loyal, like, when, artists are that loyal to their band and keep them for
Yeah,
years and
yeah,
years,
they're really
same thing.
special. They're
That's
really
so cool.
special.
Um, when you watch stuff like that back now, do you how do I wanna phrase this? Like, do you remember that time of life, or do you
Oh
just,
my
like,
gosh.
remember
No,
watching.
vividly, vividly, and I
You
think
do?
that's one thing that's super cool is, I feel like, it is such an unreal feeling how close I am with Daryl, the
Okay.
young boy who played my brother.
Yes.
Um, we have had just such a unique experience growing up in that movie, but also in that time where there
Yeah,
wasn't social media. We were very protected from the things of the industry. So we had a very innocent experience. And honestly, it was
good.
like a unicorn experience, what we had. So, when we hear people being like, oh my gosh, like child hackers, was it just the worst? Or like it was actually the best. And, we were sitting down
Wow.
together the other day, just literally talking about, like, I don't think anybody will ever understand. Like, we're the only 2 people that will truly understand what that was like. Like, because
Yeah,
even the parents had a different experience, like, we were just such innocent kids living in, like, this incredible fantasy land. We were playing dress up every day, we had the coolest gadgets, and then when it was time for the movies to come out, they would fly us all over the world and, like, I mean, we were everywhere promoting these movies. It just wasn't real life. It was the coolest thing, and we remember it so vividly. It's just formed who we
wow.
are.
Yeah, because I always wondered, like, do you just remember, like, watching like, you remember it because you watch it back or something, but
Right.
being that present and that young and having that good of experience,
Yeah. No,
I love that you're still close.
it was so special and unique that I'm
Who
so glad that I feel that way.
who helped you get into acting at such a young age?
So I started when I was 4. I was actually really, really
Girl,
little.
you were so little.
My mom was a model, and, what I love something that my mom implemented that we do in our family now is, she didn't just leave to go to work, she traveled everywhere with her family. So
Cool.
whenever she had a shoot, we were with her. Whenever she had to travel, we would travel with her. So, um, she didn't wanna break up the family because she realized that the one thing that she would constantly see in these industries was that the family was separated, and then it was like a recipe for disaster because like kids are
Yeah.
growing up without their mom or without their dad, and it was just such a mess. And you don't want
Yeah.
managers raising your kids. No offense to managers, but they're not parents.
They're
Like
not
it's not.
parents.
Yeah, you need a mom and dad to tell you yes or no. So we ended up coming to California. She had a shoot, but she also knew like, man, Lex has this like drive for the industry in a ways that normal kids don't. Like I love my kids, but I could never see them at 4 trying to be like an actor because it just takes a certain type of personality. I don't know what it is. I look back, I'm like, how the heck did I do that at 4? 'Cause I'm looking at my kids and I love them. They're amazing and so special, but I just can't picture them doing
Not in
that kind
yeah,
of stuff,
not in a movie set.
No, like when and that's why, I am so in awe of people like Dakota Fanning. Like you go back and look at her and I am fan. You're like, how is this little child so capable of a performance like that? It's unreal. Um, so anyway, that was another tangent, sorry.
No, I love it.
My mom, her best friend was watching me during a shoot while we were all in California because we had traveled there. We were there for a little bit, but I think we kind of like went off to go eat. And she got a call that there was an audition. Could her friend like take me into the audition? So I just went and I got it in the room. And Burt
Wow.
Reynolds literally asked me in the room if I wanted to play his daughter on the show, which was wild. And that was my introduction to the business. So
Hollywood.
it was not a normal experience at all.
Right. Gosh, that's crazy. Yeah, because I was talking to my mom about this because she was who I went to the movies with to see Spy Kids growing up, so this was kind of like a full circle moment for her too. But that was her question. She's like, "How does a child even get into that?" So that
Yeah.
makes so much sense that your mom was kind of already around
Yeah.
it, but it was a pretty seamless entry, it seems like, for you.
It just kind of, yeah, I just fell into it. I mean, I know that sounds weird, but I really did
No.
fall into it. And I know there are so many people who like work so hard to break in. And, you know, I I really do feel like God was like, this is where I needed you and this is where you're gonna be. So I'm gonna plant you. And, I have to give my mom a lot of praise because she didn't do things the typical stage mom way. Um, and I felt like she did a great job of keeping us rooted as little kids. There was a time, I think I was like 9 or 10 years old, where I was definitely, I guess becoming a little bratty. And she pulled me out of the industry. She was like, "No, you don't get to act anymore." And the people
I
around
didn't
her,
realize that.
yeah, the people around her were like, "You're crazy. You're going to ruin her career." She's like, "I'd rather have a kid that's good
Wow.
and respectable and kind than a famous child." So, yeah, she pulled me out, and then when I started behaving better, um, I was able to jump back into it, but I have to say, like, I don't know another life outside of working, and that's not bad. Like, I know, some people are like, "You lost your childhood," and I'm like, "This is all I've ever known, and I love it." I feel so at home on a set. Um, I had a unique childhood. I wouldn't say that I've lost my childhood.
Yeah. It's also kind of funny that your, like, grounding after you were acting out was being pulled from Hollywood.
You're
I have
not
to
allowed
say
to
that's the
work
most
any longer.
unique punishment. Yeah. That's pretty funny. But you used the word home, that you said you feel at home on a set. Um, so you've lived on a houseboat,
Yeah.
and you were in Hawaii for a little bit as well. Was that in the s like, were you in a houseboat in Hawaii, or were those 2
No,
separate
I
times in
know
your
that's
life?
very confusing. Okay, so,
Okay.
we love Hawaii. Our kids were born there. We have such a tie to Maui. It's just such a special island. But we've loved sailing. Um, Sailing in Hawaii or off that coast, that's hard. It's hard. It's choppy water over there. And people would be like, "No, just sail to California." It's so choppy, you don't wanna do that. So we decided
How'd you,
to try.
like, get into sailing, though? This feels like a
Oh,
big
YouTube.
leap.
We're
Okay.
obsessed with
You
sailing channels.
YouTubed your way into sailing.
Basically, so we
Wow.
love sailing YouTube channels. It's always been fun. My
This is
husband grew
great.
up going to like summer camp. He did 2 different camps. One was a sport camp and one was a sailing camp. So we've been super excited about sailing. Actually, Ocean Ramsey was his camp counselor. Do you know who Ocean Ramsey is? The girl who swims with all the sharks?
Oh, I don't think so,
Oh,
but I
you
feel like I
have to look it up.
should.
It's awesome.
Okay.
Um,
That's
so
cool, though.
so before we had kids, we would go on these sailing trips where we would just get, like, a bareboat and we would captain it ourselves. We'd bring our Bible study with us, and we were just like sail around and have the best time ever, and
How do I get in that Bible
I know, it
study?
was so cool, it was so
That's
cool.
amazing.
And then when you have kids, things change, but we always knew that we weren't done with
Yeah.
sailing. And then, we had this opportunity to buy a fixer-upper boat, but we knew that we needed a boat where we could live on with kids for months at a time. So we then split our time between Lahaina and the boat, and then after the fire in Lahaina, our house we were very blessed, our house did make it, but the, air quality was so bad, and unfortunately, we're hearing so many things coming out about people who stayed and having all these health issues, and it's heartbreaking, but we knew that we had to get out,
You
especially
have to
with
go.
young kids. So, we have our house there, but we ended up living full time on the boat because we just couldn't go back. Um, but then the Lord really used that time on the boat to just speak to us on so many different things. First off, just imagine living on a boat with 3 kids. That's a fixer upper. So we're like under construction trying to, like, prep this boat so that we could sail as a family. When we moved on the boat, Rio was only, like, 8 months old or something like that, so I'm just trying to keep everyone alive and like, um, cook and clean and also revamp this boat, and it was
Were you working at the time too?
yeah, so we would leave to go on tour and then come back and then be on this boat, so it was a lot, like, if I were to show you pictures, it's not cute, it's like wires everywhere, ceilings completely out, like, no air conditioning for a large portion of this time. I mean,
That might be where I'm out.
it was hard. It was hard, but, it's so funny because when I look back at it, obviously, when you're in it, you're like, "Oh my gosh, what have we done?" But then there were such great moments that I wouldn't take anything back at all. I would do it all over again. Maybe I would change, like, a couple little things here and there,
Yeah.
um, but it was just we learned so much, and man, God really met me, but that's where I was pregnant on this boat with Indy, our last child, and,
Mm.
uh, he just met me so much on that boat, and it was why we ended up moving to Tennessee, um, but I'll just never forget being in our room, laying on the bed, having just such a difficult pregnancy, just, like, experiencing God showing up for me, like, in that little room, in our little cabin on this boat, and I just wonder, had it been either an easy pregnancy or had we been on land and, in a house where it was just easier, would I have even been able to experience him like that? And even losing in the depth that we went with the Lord. Um, and I we put out a video on it the other day, but there's this strange blessing that you receive when you get to meet God on that level. Because even though it's really, really hard and painful and like, gosh, like losing a kid is just the worst thing you could ever imagine. It's the thing that you fear, right? And then having to walk through that, but like walking through it with the Lord and experiencing like a sliver of heaven on earth because he shows up for you in such a magnified way. Because without him, you really do feel like I'm going to die. Like I'm going to die. Like, how do I get through this season? Then he just shows up and you're like, I can't believe I'm experiencing like this kind of miracle feeling within me. And it's hard to put words to because it sounds crazy to walk through the season that we just walked through with multiple things and come out and be like, I feel blessed. But I do. I feel really, really blessed by him. And he just reveals so much of himself to us through the hardship that I've learned to really embrace them. Um, and it goes back to the birth, consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds, because it can be so joyful if you allow him to, if you allow him through that door.
Yeah, was preparing for this interview. Something that stood out about you to me is that your personality is so bright and bubbly and optimistic and charismatic and just like you want to soak it all up. But that to me is something that you have fought for because you have gone through a lot of hardship in your life
Mm.
from divorce at a young age, a divorce yourself, I think there was an eating disorder a little
Yeah.
bit along the way,
Oh, yeah.
being blacklisted in Hollywood because of your morals and your high ground,
Huh.
and then having a stillbirth last year. I thought, "This is a woman that has a hard fought hallelujah," to borrow that from Brendan Lake, because you have gone through the thick of it and through the fire, and you still have a tender heart. You've gone through hard things, but your heart is still so soft.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Oh, I
Well,
will take that encouragement. That's so sweet. Thank you so
yeah.
much.
That was just something that when I experience you, whether it's on the screen or on content, like, that is how I experience you, and it's such an encouragement to me, as I receive that,
Girl,
but
that's an encouragement to me. Thank you.
good, yeah. How do you maintain a soft heart after going through
Mm,
hard things like that?
I think, and this isn't me patting myself on the back, I think I just trust him so much. Like,
Wow.
I
Yeah.
just trust him so much that I'm like, Lord, I know you have me. Like, even with the loss of Indy, you have her. Like, you have each of these children, even though these are mine on earth to take care of, they're your babies, Lord. Like, you made them. And I know that this isn't our eternal home here. And I think that's something that's been really cool to walk through is I never thought of heaven more than I do now, right? And when you live life, it's like that song, Live Like You Were Dying. When
Tim McGraw.
yeah, for real though, when you live life thinking of heaven every single day, when you live life talking about heaven every single day, like I actually feel like my children are so blessed to grow up this way because they have such a different view of life. I didn't grow up thinking of heaven every single day or thinking
Yeah.
like, oh man, life is short, anything can happen. Like you just have a different lens and it's so cool to be able to walk through with just so much more. I feel like I had so much more purpose. I feel so so much more loving and filled with grace. Like, don't get me wrong, people can make me mad. They'll tick me off,
Yeah.
especially like watching all of like politics stuff. I'm just, oh Lord, I need some grace, please. But at the end of the day, I just 100% trust him. And I
Mm.
think that's where that peace or that joy really comes from. Um, and again, people still make me upset and angry. I'm human, like, but I just trust him and he has me. So I just don't have anything big to fear.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
And
good. I had a kind of like a prophetic word of healing spoken over me right after I moved to Nashville. I was attending the Belonging Co. church, if
huh,
you've heard of
yeah.
that out there. Um, and I actually hadn't even moved yet, but I just felt called to go to this conference at a church I had never been to before, and
Oh, go.
received a word of healing. But I do say, like, when people ask me why my faith is so strong, I'm like, I've just seen too much and I trust him too much
What?
to not have faith like this.
Yeah.
I've just seen too much, I can't go back.
So good. But that is true. And I think, look, I don't want people to go through hardship. I really don't. Um, but I really do feel like people who do have a very easy life or walk, um, I would just like highly suggest going on a mission trip or going somewhere where you can see maybe more hardship or maybe just understanding like how you can become more purposeful. We're such in this um, meaning place. And I feel like that's why depression is just like so high for so many people. And I'm not saying that depression is not real because depression is real. Like I've gone through bouts where I've just felt very blue. But when I think of like, okay, why am I feeling this way? Well, I was very focused on my feeling. But the second oh, sorry, I'm hitting my mic. But the second I started focusing my my thoughts and focus my prayers and everything onto how can I be purposeful for kingdom use or for the use of other people, like a true servant, that goes away because you're no longer focused on your problems or your issues or your things or your sadness or your grief or your sorrow, your despair, like all of it. Like you got to start like rebuking that stuff and getting it out of the way. Um, so I don't even know why I went on this tangent because I do that a lot. I'm so sorry. Um,
No, well, I resonate because I do think that depression comes on when there is a lack of hope and a lack of purpose set.
yes.
And I think when we become too self-focused on ourselves, I think that's almost when we lose the purpose and lose the hope because you start to lose perspective of everything else
Yeah.
going on. And I don't know, I think about that even for the older generation too, as maybe like there's just changing of life seasons. Like how do you find purpose in your 60s or your 70s? And that lonely season kind of comes in. So I don't know. I
Oh,
think about that a lot for the older generation going through that too. Because
gosh, what wisdom the older generation has, though. So much to offer. I feel like that's
yes,
such a lie from the enemy to feel like, oh, what do I do now at 60 and 70? Oh my
yes.
gosh. To sit down with a 60-year-old or a 7-year-old, 70-year-old and ask questions about life, about their
Maybe I'll just have a whole
thoughts.
podcast season of like 65 and up.
I mean, but for
Tell us what to
real,
do.
because think about it, like that kind of wisdom, you can't just read in a book or get overnight. And, there's so many things I wish I could say to my 20-year-old self who felt like, oh gosh, I know so much. But there's so much that you learn through life, just
Yeah,
experiencing life, right?
yeah.
Um, I don't know. I feel like most of my friends have always been much older than me. Like I have a friend who I'm actually closer with her mother than I am to her because we
I
just
totally
get
relate
along
to that.
so well, and just the insane wisdom she pours out in every conversation, and I just care for her so deeply, just so deeply, and not as a mom, but as a real friend,
A
as my
legitimate
friend.
friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
When I
yeah.
was still living a little bit closer to my hometown, back in Virginia, my mom has like the coolest friends. And so when we were all kind of in like the same like 5 or 10 mile proximity, I would take tennis lessons with my mom and her friends.
Yeah.
I would get a drink with my mom and
Oh,
her
that's
friends. And
so
so,
good. That's
yes, it
so
was,
good.
I have such fond memories of that time of my life, but it was one of those things where, well, yes, they were in a different season. It did show me at the end of the day, we're all women.
Yes,
We're all kind of experiencing the same
100%.
feelings. They threw much better dinner parties, or if I moved, they would give me like a move-in party and give me all of their old kitchen utensils that
Yeah.
they didn't use anymore. And I was like, people my age would never like thought of
No,
that. And so,
we're very different, and they're still, like, respectable and, like, have real napkins, not paper towels for
yes,
dinner and stuff.
yes.
You
I
know
have like 10 paper towels in my car right now.
Yep,
So,
I know how that feels. That's how me too. I do think it's interesting though, and I feel like this is when I look at the body of Christ, how important everybody is in the
yes.
church and all ages, because as much as we need um, elders to pour into us with wisdom, they need us to continue to reignite that fire even within them. Um,
Yeah,
and
I think you're so right.
I didn't understand that until I did Dancing with the Stars with Carlos. And for us, our entire goal on that show was we want to show people how awesome marriage is. Because it was at a time where I feel like every single one of our friends were in long term relationships with no desire to get married. We're like, marriage is awesome. It's holy. It's cool. Like, why would you not want to get married? And they were just like, well, we don't need it. And it's like, what if? And it's ball and chain kind of feel, right? So our goal was we're gonna go on the show and we want people to see how beautiful marriage is. And we knew that we were doing something, but we didn't realize the magnitude of it until we were getting like thousands of letters from older couples saying thank you for taking the stance in like marriage, for standing up for marriage, and for reigniting our marriage by watching you guys. And we
Wow.
were blown away because I feel like a lot of times God calls you to plant the seed, you plant it, but you don't always get to see the fruit.
Yeah,
And it was such an encouragement to see the fruit of it or to at least like receive these letters of encouragement back. Because, as
it's cool.
young people and as a young couple, you do need that encouragement to like know, oh, like it's working. Like, yes, okay, Lord, thank you. Thank you for that. We're going to keep going. Um, I think young people for sure need a little bit of extra validation to continue on their walk, I think, if that makes sense, or at least we did.
Yeah. Do you guys still dance together at all?
No! Okay, so I love
Ah!
dancing, I love it, and Carlos is so good at it, just naturally amazing. But he doesn't like dancing. Like, I have to do this for work and I don't want to have to. He's like, no, it's not fun for me. Meanwhile, I'm like, let's go pole dancing. Let's go line
Yeah.
dancing. He's like, no. So he actually, the other day, we took a mommy and daddy cruise and out of nowhere, it's not even a dancing area. He just grabbed me and we start dancing. And I'm like, what is
That's so
happening right now?
romantic.
He's like, let's just dance a little. And it was so much fun. It was the highlight of my trip. And
Oh,
I was like, how fun was that? He's like, you're right. That was fun.
okay, good. So maybe this is another
So
seed
hopefully it's like the
planted for
start
future
of the
stuff.
season. Yeah, the dancing
Oh
season.
my gosh. I love that. I love dancing. My mom was a dance major.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so,
Nice.
yes, I have a little bit of rhythm because of her, but I always tell people so she's left handed. We have this theory that all left handed people are creative, but that doesn't always map the other way.
I totally agree. I really do feel like
Okay.
all left-handed people are just so creative, and whenever I'm watching a
Yes.
movie and I see an actor write with their left hand, I was like, "Oh, that makes sense.
Yep.
That just makes
Checks
sense."
out. That checks out. We clocked it. But she, being left handed and a dancer, would always spin me like the
The
opposite
opposite direction.
way.
Yeah.
And so Austin has pretty good, like, kinda line dancing. You're just, like, a little bit more places than Nashville to go, but I always have to let it's hard for me to let the guy lead because I just wanna turn the opposite
You're like,
way. It's
"No,
just
oh,
like
oh, sure, yeah."
like I was like, "I know that you're right, but, like, I'm also not wrong." So that's that's my thought on dancing.
I know you're right, but I'm not wrong. I'm
I'm
gonna
not
use
wrong.
that with my husband.
He's gonna be like, "Who did Megan set you up for an interview with? Don't talk to that girl again."
Hilarious.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I could talk to you for forever, but,
I
I
know, girl.
do
I talk a lot too. I'm sorry.
no, I wanna be mindful of your time too, but, I'm gonna see if I can get this question right because it's something that I thought of a lot. There's kinda 2 parts to it. Um, Matthew McConaughey was recently on Rick Rubin's podcast, and he had mentioned this thing of when he's acting in the moment and they're recording him, he's like, "Oh, I'm nailing it. Like, I know exactly what I'm doing, and this is good." Goes to the monitor to go watch what was recorded, and he was like, "That was not it whatsoever. Totally missed the mark." So, obviously, after years and years, that gap kinda closes.
Mhm.
But I have found that even with podcasting on a very, very obviously, like, much, much smaller scale of some episodes I hop off and I'm like, "That was not my best showing," and it never fails that a lot of times that will be one of
Every
my most
favorite. Yeah, I
yes,
know.
a best performing episode. Is that something that you've experienced or
What?
refined over the years?
100%. It's so weird where you're like, "Man, that was an awful take," and they're like, "No, that was it." You're like, "That was it?
What?
What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And I think it's just it comes back to self-awareness. I think it's good to be self-aware, but when we're overly self-aware that we can't actually live in the moment, I feel like that's when I get kind of taken out of it or my performance then suffers. Because if I'm so highly aware of every little thing that I'm doing and I'm like, "Oh, great, I nailed it." Well, no, because I look like I'm thinking of everything I'm doing versus just like it happening naturally. Um, I don't know. Our industry is strange because we I think when you're acting, I wish that every role I had the freedom to just kind of do whatever I wanted or play. That's not always the case, depending on the directors that you're working with or the producers that you're working with. They have a vision as well. So as much as I have some freedom to be able to bring a character to life the way I want, you also don't want to let these people down. And the one thing that I think is I've had to learn over the years, is to be okay not getting the validation. I was talking earlier about how, like, we need the validation, it
Yes.
helps, right? But not getting the validation, and sometimes when people are like, "Yeah, okay, moving on," it means that they got it, but not needing, like, a "Great job," like, "That was the take," or whatever, because a lot of times you're in a time crunch, but, like, you want to appease the producers, you want to appease the director. You're trying to make their vision come true as well, so it's like you're balancing all these different things, and I know the actor life is such a, like, glamorous life. It's not like I'm out digging in the dirt and, like, doing hard labor. So I get that, but there is a lot of pressure and a lot of responsibility that lies on you as an actor to get it right when you have an entire set waiting for you to say your lines right, to perform well, so that we can move on to the next scene so people can go home
It
to
is
their family.
pressure. Yeah.
So there is a weird pressure there. But I don't know, I do feel like I agree with your statement, or Matthew McConaughey's statement that, like, I would go back to the monitor and feel the same way. But as I've gotten older, I've just become more comfortable and not really cared as much as far as what like, that kind of validation or needing that director or producer to tell me I did a good job. Just being able to fit in, like, I guess, myself and go, "No, I did the work that I needed to do to prepare for this scene, and I know it went well."
Validating myself has been a journey over the years, especially, running my own business. I work remotely. There is no external validation of you've done a good job or like you made it to the next life milestone or
Right.
whatever it is. So that's something I've worked a lot in therapy was like validating my own experience,
Yeah.
validating what not necessarily success, but doing a good job looks like for me,
Yeah.
no matter what is on the other side. I even had a gal, it was maybe 2 days ago. She said, when you're prepping for a podcast interview, are you thinking about the audience and what they would like to know? Like, what is your process? And I was like, actually, I don't think about that as much. I want to create art from the conversation as much as possible.
Or
And I am hoping that my extension of creativity lands with them in the way that it should.
so good.
And so having that
But
as,
that genuine people want that
yeah,
over something that only caters to them. And sometimes I do have to watch myself because I am very conversational and I am very honest and straight up that, like, even though I know that we're in this setting, this is meant for many people to watch. Um, so I do kind of like, I don't want to say put my foot in my mouth because I mean what I say. I am very honest, but it is funny. Someone's like, oh, I forgot people are going to be watching that.
well, I think that's so good because I think a lot of times there's just so much walls up. And that's what I do love about podcasting. Obviously, it's kind of taking over traditional and legacy media, anyways.
Very
It,
personable,
It's
relational.
so personal. Yeah, because I love podcasting, but my heart's really for storytelling, and so
Yeah.
this is just the lowest barrier to entry, industry for
Yep.
storytelling, and so that's where it's just been so fun to have these kinds of conversations. Haven't even asked you about Great American Family. I cried over Christmas watching is it Getting Back for Christmas?
Yeah.
Is that the title of
Thank
it?
you for watching
Okay.
it.
Oh my gosh, of course. My mom watched it first. I talk about my mom a lot on the podcast, apparently. My aunt and my uncle live across the street from my parents. And so it's really cute. Like in the morning when one of them wakes up, they open the blind so the other one knows that they're awake and they can call and talk. But my whole family watched the movie over Christmas and then it just kind of like went down. My mom was like, oh, I'm going to record it. So when you come home, we can watch it
That makes
together.
me
Because again,
so
that was
happy.
our thing. Um, how has the transition, I guess, been from Hallmark to Great American Family? And then do you also have your own production company now?
Yeah. Okay. So many cool
That's
things. Remember I
amazing.
said, like, God was just opening these doors that are shocking to us. So this is where I have to, like, super lift up my husband. He was just like, I'm tired of waiting for people to bring us opportunities. We love filmmaking. We love creating projects and movies. He's like, we've wanted to start a production company for years. I'm doing it. He's like, you better be wanting to do it with me. I was like, yes, of course. Are you kidding me? So we rallied our old team from literally Bible study days.
Wow.
These guys
The
used to
Bible
go.
study on the boat?
Yes, you guys used to go on
Okay.
sailing adventures with us. So it is George, Mike, Carlos, and myself. We run the production company along with Megan, who you know. Um, and we're just so proud. Actually, Mike's going to be here in a little bit. And we're just going to be going over kind of what the next steps are for our production company. But we were given an opportunity to make Getting Back for Christmas, which was an idea that Carlos had while we were on Maui. We were serving in with the Salvation Army with a lot of the families after the fire, and Carlos is like, I really love the Salvation Army, and I just want to make a movie like that kind of revolved around them. So the story evolved a lot from what it originally was. But we're so proud of this movie because we just wanted to take kind of like the typical Christmas movie that you would see on a Hallmark or on a Great American Family. And we just wanted to just elevate it and bring a little touch of like a youthfulness to it, where it's still great for the entire family, older or younger, but just give it, just a little bit more of like a younger feeling. And I feel like we did that. And I'm so proud of what we accomplished. And my husband and Alex wrote all the music together. Alex is one of his best musicians.
Wow.
I'm just so proud of them.
Wow. So this was an idea from years ago. he decided to take action on it. So was it your production company that
Yeah,
produced and
our
recorded and
production
filmed?
company did this, so we did, because of, like, contracts and how it works behind the scenes, they put us together with Mario Lopez's, um,
Yes.
production company, and Mark Roberts, who is on his team, could not have been more wonderful with, like, help, like, facilitating what we needed and really just kind of being, like, the papa bear on set to make sure that, like, the kids were running the ship right.
How
But,
did your friendship with Mario Lopez start?
oh, no, so that all happened through Great American Family.
Oh, I didn't
They
realize
put
they
us
were
yeah, well,
got it, okay.
known Mario for years, just like
Yeah.
from work, work interviews and whatnot. But we never really connected on this level. So even though, he was still at Access Hollywood every day and working hard there, but he did lend his voice and face to some cameos on
Yep.
screen. And
There were some good cameos.
they were great. It was perfect. And, Mark was just a really, really wonderful asset on set to just kind of make sure that us as, like, a young production company were doing it just all right. And I was very thankful for that opportunity because to be given a movie to just do as a brand new production company, that's a rare and hard thing to get. And we worked our tushies off, but we're really proud of what we have.
So it sounds like there's more to come.
That's the goal. We're in
Yay.
hope, we're in hopes. Um, yeah, today we're having really big meetings, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, I'll be praying for you.
Thank you.
What was the, funniest scene to film for that
What do you
movie?
hint to film? Oh my gosh. I love the line dancing scene. That was just so fun because there's so many
Yes.
people there and then playing the music and whatnot. I would say though, my favorite was all of the oh, hi, buddy. Sorry, my dog is just decided to come
Hi, oh,
visit. Hi,
perfect.
baby. Um,
Oh.
I would say either the line dancing scene or hold on, hold on, hold on. Sorry, guys. This is real life here, real life.
Oh my gosh, it's totally good.
Um, and then the other scene, there were just a couple that I love, like the one where I'm on the dock and I'm just chatting with my husband and I'm trying to get him to dip a fry in the shake. Like just having
Yes.
so much fun with that, or even like the writing scenes with all the music. I loved that. They're just a handful that really what's the matter? Do you have to go potty? I'm so sorry, you guys. Just,
Oh my gosh, do you need
it's okay. I'll let him out in just a minute. He'll be fine.
okay, okay.
Sorry. Um, So yeah, I would say there are a handful of scenes, but probably my favorite were like the songwriting scenes.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I love that you guys were able to kinda do that together. So, congratulations on the launch of the production company. That's
Thank
so
you.
fun. I
Thank
can't wait to
you.
see
It's called
all the
Good
things
for
coming up.
You.
Good for you, and
Yep.
then the first release was Getting Back for
Got it back for
Christmas.
Christmas. And we're having so many amazing talks with a handful of people. And it looks like Good for You is gonna stick around. So we're really excited.
Good. Good. We'll be right into that. Well, Alexa, I'll ask you one more question that I ask all of my guests. Typically, there's like a lead up question that I didn't ask earlier, so we'll kind of combine them together.
Great.
But was there a person in your life that you wouldn't be Alexa Penavega, the
Mm.
actress and kind of singer, songwriter, author, strong in your faith, without this specific person in your life?
Oh.
And did that person have like a coined phrase or saying that they always said to you?
Hmm. It's hard because so when I first saw this question, I read it more as like actor or like who's your hero kind of thing. And um I never
We can
really
take it that way too if you want. I'm
I was
curious to
gonna
know that
say
as
it,
well.
I never really grew up with that. Like I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, like, Michael Jordan, because he was the best basketball player, or, I there were always actors that I was fond of. Um, but none that were like that person changed the game for me. When I think of what matters to me most in my life, it is my faith. And when I think of the people who have really um, just like just kind of really got the wheels turning for me for with my faith. One would be my godmother, Amy, who has just she used to be the one going to the Bible study with my mom back in the day, and
Wow.
I've known her since I was itty bitty, and her daughter is a lot of the reason also why I got into the industry because her daughter is right between my mom's age and my age. So she like fell right in between us, and it was her agency that took us in as a whole family. And um, so I would say Amy, she's just had such an impact on my
Mm.
faith, my growth in my faith, such an impact on my mom, such an impact really on our entire family, and even with work, because she was the one who took me to my first audition. So I
Wow.
would definitely say Amy, but then afterward, there were a handful of other people who really helped me navigate my faith. One is my best friend, Andrew Mortaza, who is amazing, and it was his Bible study that I met my husband.
Wow.
And
The realtor?
the realtor, yes.
Yes.
And he was just so instrumental with, like,
Wow.
helping us root into God and understand, like, what it actually meant to live for God, um, as young people in our 20s in this industry.
Wow. Did they have a certain phrase that they were known for? Like, I always give the example, my grandmother used to always say, "Have a happy and holy day," or
Um,
we had, like, a little
you know,
handshake.
I wish I could say they had, like, these perfect catch phrases. There wasn't a perfect phrase, but, the one thing I always grew up with, which is so cheesy and cliche, but it is so true. It's the golden rule. Do unto others as, you want them to do to you, and I just feel like it's such a powerful thing, and I feel like people have totally lost it. It has gone out the window. You could see it in comments of how people speak to each other.
The comment
Oh my
sections.
gosh, the comment section, although comment sections are probably some of my favorite places, um, because it's just very entertaining. But yeah, I would say the golden rule has been just such a standard and something that is so in my life. And I think that's the other thing that, you were saying earlier, like, why is it that, like, you just seem happy all the time or, like, unfazed by things or whatever, and I think it goes back to the golden rule. At the end of the day, even if people are being turds, they are turds, by the way, that people are always gonna be turds, and they're gonna just be people who don't like you for the sake of not liking you, and that's it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like, I'm gonna treat them with love and respect and kindness, and I'm gonna treat them in the way that I hope would plant the seed that they could then maybe treat me with that same respect and kindness when they're mature enough to receive,
Yes.
maybe that seed.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for sharing both of those things. And I actually forgot to tell you because I don't know if you can see, but I got and wore these huge hoop earrings in
Yes,
honor of you today.
yes!
I was hoping you'd be wearing
I
yours today
love it.
too.
Listen, I crack up because you can have no makeup on, jeans and a white shirt. I'm literally in sweats and a white shirt, and hoop just changed the game.
Gal, when I woke up this morning, I can't remember if I already told you this, but when I woke up this morning, the electricity was out. Oh, yeah, because
Yes,
my producer let me
yes.
share at his place. And I had different earrings on as I was walking in. I was like, this is not giving me the attitude that I need today. And
I
I put on
Oh
the
my
hoop
gosh,
earrings
the
and I was like, this is what we
I
need.
feel like it's like the Latina hoop. It just changes
Yes.
everything. It's just
Yes.
little and I don't know, I feel like that was, like, my one big takeaway from J.Lo. She's always got, like, the best hoops on. Like, "No,
Yes.
you always look
Hoops matter.
good. Hoops matter."
Bring hoops back. Well, Alexa, where can everybody follow you? What can we expect from you? Tell them all the things.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm on Instagram, Vega Alexa. We are on TikTok as a collective, and
Cool.
that's Penavega,
Okay.
and we have a YouTube channel called La Vida Penavega.
Okay. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on, and I'll chat with you soon.
All right, God bless.
Bye.
Bye.